Welcome. I'm Adam Miller, consultant with the Art of Applying and graduate of Darden at the University of Virginia. Today we've got a question from the Q&A vault about the GRE. Basically, this person took the GRE, submitted their applications, and in their final supplemental app, they put down that they were going to retake the GRE again while the school was going to be deciding who to give interviews to and who they're actually going to admit. Unfortunately, they didn't do better on this new attempt, and they're trying to figure out what to do with this score. So let's take a look at exactly what they wrote in and how our consultants responded to this question. They said, I just took the GRE for the fourth time, and I had written about it in all my applications that I'll retake to improve my quant score, right? So improve that part of their GRE in February. So it sounds like they applied in round 2. Unfortunately, the score didn't improve as I had hoped. My best score is still the one that I submitted with my applications. Should I inform the schools about this new score? I'm interviewing with 2 of my top choices on Monday and Wednesday, and I'm also taking supplemental courses on economics and calculus, and those grades are still pending. Would really appreciate any advice. First, our consultant just says, clarifying this is for MBA programs, correct? It is, and then goes on to ask, or advise, I should say, if the interviewers don't ask, don't bring up the score. That's exactly right. If you're sitting there face-to-face or over Zoom with a person who's giving you the interview to go to that program, there's a very low chance that they've looked at your whole application, let alone your standardized test score, let alone, your supplemental essay on things you need to improve. Most likely they've just glanced at your resume. Maybe they pulled up your LinkedIn on the way into walking into that interview. Maybe they looked at a couple of quick notes that the person who did do the in-depth reading of your applications said, hey, be on the lookout for these kinds of things. Make sure you ask about data questions. But there's almost no chance that this person has read the entire series of questions that you wrote into the school. They're just coming in to have a conversation about what you've been doing and why you want to go to graduate school. So yeah, that advice I completely agree with. And then the consultant goes on to say, if the quant question comes up, right, because that's sort of the weakness in your GRE, that's why I bring up the data question. The way to answer that is not by talking about the GRE in anyone's case. It's to focus instead on the work experiences that you've had that demonstrate your comfort with quantitative subjects. In your case, you could also mention that you're taking some supplemental classes right now in calculus or in economics, and that also that's a big reason for why you want to go to business school in the first place. And for future reference, I would say that you're better off not mentioning future plans to retake the GRE. I'm always hesitant to let schools know that you plan on retaking the test for exactly this reason. You never know which score is going to be higher and lower. I completely agree. The client writes back to us, thank you. Yes, this is for MBA programs. I did mention my plans to retake it during my interview with one school. So basically they'd already had an interview and they mentioned it to the interviewer. I wouldn't recommend that. The interviewer doesn't need to know whether you did well or not. And also via email to another school that's my top choice. So, okay. So basically you told the interviewer that you were going to retake it. You just didn't tell them how you were going to do. I wouldn't recommend that because if you had already known you didn't do as well, you're setting yourself up for failure there. And if you haven't actually taken it yet, you're just kind of having them jot down a note that's going to get thrown away when you don't ever submit that new score to them, because I wouldn't recommend giving them this new score. And then you told another school via email that you were going to be retaking it. Don't recommend that. Basically, just do the standardized test scores. And if you need to retake it, take it without telling anyone. Should I just let them know that I took it and it didn't go as planned to show that I put in the effort? Our consultant writes back, you're right that letting the schools know that you took it does show effort for preparing, right? They like seeing that you've taken it multiple times sometimes because it just shows that you're tenacious and that you're serious about this whole thing. But I think the latest GRE creates more questions than answers is what she says. For example, you will have to submit your new scores. Are you going to submit them to all these schools? No, you wouldn't submit scores that are lower to schools that already have a higher score from you. So really, you just need to stay silent on this whole thing. Finally, she says, I still think you could focus on mentioning other ways you've been succeeding in preparing your quant skills. Talk about the work that you've been doing at your job, and talk about the supplemental classes and what you've been learning in those, and definitely submit those grades if it's in time for the decisions from the schools. Lastly, our founder and CEO weighs in here and says, I agree. Don't bring up the latest test unless the interviewer or school specifically asks you. At this point, just don't ever bring it up again. And instead, focus on that classes and your job, right? So again, with these standardized test scores, the big takeaway here is that you don't want to promise anything that you can't be really sure that you're going to be able to deliver on. You can be sure that you're probably going to be able to finish these supplemental classes and get a passing grade, if not a high passing grade. But it's much less likely that if you've taken a standardized test a few times that you're going to make significant improvements. So don't promise it, right? You might have said that because you think that it's going to give you just a little bit more of an edge in having them want to interview you because you're kind of dangling this carrot in front of them that they can report a slightly higher score from you. But at the end of the day, you're so much more than your standardized test score. You want to be focusing on the essays. You want to be focusing on getting amazing letters of recommendation. And hopefully you've gotten great work experience and you'll continue to do that throughout the application season, maybe getting a promotion or doing some more interesting projects. That's all stuff you can control. Your standardized test scores, at some point, just more studying is not going to lead to a better score. So that's it for today's video. Thank you. I'm Adam Miller. And if you're interested in applying to graduate school and want some help with your applications, reach out to us at theartofapplying.com.